Hey, what's up everyone? Danny here. In this 5K Q&A in May, someone asked me a question on my channel. One of my viewers asked me a question. He's a brand new boxer. He just started as a boxer and he'd like to know what's the most important thing, in my opinion, he should focus on. I'm going to answer that right now. So ironically, I brought in my old bag. A lot of people know me as a Muay Thai or mixed martial arts coach, but I've been proficient in boxing. I've been training boxing throughout my career. When I was younger, I've probably put more boxing sparring rounds with boxers than I've done with MMA or Thai boxing people. So I know a thing or two about boxing, but I want to talk to you about the first and most important element you should have when you're starting out as a boxer or a boxing person that wants to train and learn the sweet science. Here's one of my bags, and in here I have my old school boxing shoes. Man, dusty. Thanks for the question, by the way. So I'm going to put on these shoes. Haven't worn these for such a long time, but this is going to be cool. I'm not even going to tie these up. I'm just going to wear them like this. So I found these in my old martial arts stuff bag. I have a huge bag that I was cleaning out, and these were in them, and I thought, before I throw these away, good question. So what should you focus on? And I know you guys are probably thinking, I'm going to be showing you some tactical punches and whatnot, but come on over here. Let's stand over here, guys. Now, let's get on the green. I'm going to show you guys what I think is the most important aspect in the boxing game. So whether you're a white collar, blue collar, professional boxer, amateur boxer, it doesn't matter. Any great boxing coach is going to agree that footwork is the #1 element you should have when you're starting out as a boxer. So whether you're a boxing enthusiast or someone who just wants to learn the sweet science of boxing for training or to fight amateur or professionally one day, you're going to get as close to great as possible if you focus on the footwork. Ask any great boxing coach what the first thing you should focus on. They're going to say footwork. If they don't, you know they're wrong and I'm right. Okay, so come back to this channel once again. Now, I can't leave you just hanging on. The most important aspect is focus on your footwork, and you're starting out in what should I do, right? So if I talk about just footwork, of course I can do a 60-minute long tutorial on just the basic fundamentals of footwork. But if you focus on the basics right now, this will serve you well, because throughout your career of boxing, as an athlete practicing the sport, with good footwork, you're going to have good leverage and good balance. And that's going to cement all of your boxing foundations, all of the basic skills you're going to learn in boxing with whatever gym you're training at, and eventually your advanced skills as well. Now, the foreground of good footwork is always going to start with stance. You have to have a good stance. So I can't leave you hanging and just say, get good footwork without at least talking about this. And this is what I'm going to just look at. I'm going to touch about the stance right now. Is the first thing, and guys, if you guys are watching this video, you know I talk about Thai boxing, mixed martial arts a lot, but keep in mind this is about boxing, Western boxing, not Thai boxing. So there's no kicks or takedowns involved, it's about just boxing. Now, I prefer a 45-degree stance if it's just straight out boxing. I used to box a lot with some boxers, and I used to use this stance a lot, and then I would go back to my Thai boxing original stance, more square, just to test things out. Now, for you to being a boxer, look at my feet. The first thing is you want to focus on your feet, good placement of your feet. So don't laugh at these boots. These are boxing boots. These are the original ones from the 90s actually. Now if I'm facing my opponent here, this means my left is forward, left foot forward. If I'm right-handed, that means I am an orthodox fighter. Now if you're right-handed, that means you'll be in a reverse stance, or left-handed, you'll be southpaw. Let's look at it in my stance, all right? Orthodox stance. My feet are going to be pointing this way if my opponent is right here in front of my lead shoulder. I like to talk about lead hand, and rear hand. So the left hand and the power hand, because a lot of times I have southpaw fighters and athletes I train, so saying left or right is confusing. So if my opponent is facing here, you are my opponent, I'll be in this stance, 45 degrees with both legs, both feet, both knees, right? I'm here. I'm not going to stand square. So let me do it for the purpose of the video sideways so you can see. So the opponent is right here. I'll be pointing my feet in this fashion like this. All right, so this so you can see the exact placement or the width that I have in between both legs. Okay, so I'm wearing the boxing shoes just because it's a boxing question, and I took these out of my old boxing bag, all right? So now, without talking about too much, without elaborating on too much specifics, you want to make sure you're always in good balance. So you have good leverage, good power, good strength, speed in every single punch you're going to attack with, okay? And that's going to also transcend into your defensive boxing as well. The most common mistake, let's talk about this. The most common mistake that I see for starting out boxers or even martial artists in general is they'll start to move forward. They don't balance their feet properly from left to right side when they want to move forward. So if I want to move towards my front side, my left, they'll do this. They'll step and they'll watch my heel. See? It's going to be heel toe. See that lead foot goes heel toe? And that's the wrong way to do the proper stance or footwork. When I want to go forward, I always want to be standing on the balls of my feet. All right, so you can't see with shoes right now, but my heels are not touching onto the ground. When I'm standing, my heels are slightly elevated. It's almost like I want to pass a sheet of paper underneath my heels and it'll go right through, right? Nothing's going to stop it. So you always want to be relaxed. Now, I didn't say on the top of your toes, right? You always want to have good balance. So just slightly elevated, good comfortable stance. You can be bouncy like this, okay? You're moving around. But now when I want to move forward once again, I don't want to step with my heel. I want to step with the ball of my foot. So I want to step here and then come back. Now, as opposed to doing this, 1 and then 2. See how this brings everything down? See, I go 1 with my heel and then drop it down. This is wrong, guys. What happens here is when I step with my heel, you see this a lot. You know, if you watch televised fights, especially in the amateur ranks, a lot of people like 0 to 3 fights, they'll do this a lot. 1, 2. 1, 2. What this does is it'll lock my hip up. Now when I step with my heel, it locks my knee. My knee is now locked for a fraction of a second, which locks my hip, which brings the weight backwards, which I can't project forward. The reason why I want to step forward is to step in to close the gap so I can hit my opponent, right? So if I do it with my heel first, I'm losing that millisecond that it takes, and that millisecond is just enough for the person to block, parry, slip, duck, on my attacks, okay? So now, I want you to practice good footwork by stepping forward on the balls of your foot. So 1 and 2. And always drag the back leg. So you go 1 and 2. And 1 and 2. And if I'm going backwards, it's going to be the same thing, right? I'm retreating and bring it back. Forward or backwards. Okay, now, once we have this down, we have to understand also the back foot is very important because this is the one that's going to charge the power in your punches. I talked about this in some Muay Thai videos, but it's the same principle in boxing, okay? So the back foot, one of the common mistakes I see for boxers is they have their back foot standing outside like this, okay? So see how my stance is? Sometimes it's like this, like an L. This is wrong. This is what I call duck feet. This is the duck stance. We don't want to have a duck stance. We want the boxer stance. So the back foot is going to be pointing at a 45 like this, just like the front foot. And the reason why we point the lead foot or the lead leg at a 45 is watching the camera like this. If I'm like this, there's a lot of targets for you. We do this in mixed martial arts. We'll do this in Thai boxing, of course, because we have a lot more weapons to take care of, like the takedowns and leg kicks and clinches. But in straight out Western boxing, none of that matters. So now all I want to do is protect my chin, my temple, my nose, but also my body. The rib cage, I don't want to have it exposed to you. So I'm going to be standing more sideways like this. The great Roy Jones is a perfect prime example of a sideways stance, and he was very, very efficient with it, right? So you want to have a snappy jab. You want to have a lot of power on the rear hand, you know, so you can propel that. So I talked about leverage earlier. So the stance and the footwork is going to be the first and most important thing you should be working on. Now, I don't want to take too much time on this video. It's just a Q&A, but I did want to at least touch on some basics, you know, just touch the tip of the iceberg of what you should keep in mind every time. The next time you're going to, when your gym opens up, or even in your home, if you're practicing your boxing, when you're going to shadow box, make sure you have proper stance, make sure you have proper feet alignment, make sure you have proper footwork. Once you develop that, once the gym's open back again, and you get back and step foot into your boxing gym, of course, you're gonna see some improvement, especially if you're starting out. And now, once you have good footwork, that's the foundation. Man, that is the foundation. That is the thing that any great boxing coach is gonna agree with me that once a fighter comes, or even a practitioner comes into the gym and they have this good leverage and balance and footwork already, the punches are just like adding just the windows on a building, right? Just learning how to punch is like so easy, and throwing punches and combinations so much easier after you have a good base from the feet going on up, as opposed to people who practice backwards by learning how to punch properly and putting combinations, but they have no stance, they have no footwork, they have no way to move around the ring and get offensive and defensive on a short moment's notice. So, hey, I hope that answered your question. It's kind of like very vague to say what's the first thing you should focus on, but the first thing that came to mind is, hey, I have my boxing shoes here in my bag. Just before I get rid of them, I'm actually going to make a video on it. And I wanted to address what, in my opinion, is the most important thing in boxing. So the sweet science, you heard it right here on this channel. Danny says, footwork it is. Over and out. Take care.